You're listening to Brand Enabled, the human stories behind branding. This is the place to gain greater insight into the human side of branding. Join Gabriel Cohen as he sits down with branding experts, sharing real-life stories of how they faced complex issues along their journey. Learn how others are dealing with maximizing the power of brand and get valuable advice straight from your peers. Here's your host, Gabriel Cohen.
All right, Alex, thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Really excited to have you. It's been some time in the making, knowing all that you've been through, but just really thrilled to have you here and to chat about sort of your experience, both in the credit union space and particularly with the recent rebrand that you went through in the last 2 years here. So thanks again for joining us. And why don't you go ahead, if we don't mind, just starting off by way of introduction. Tell us a bit about yourself, Alex, your role at Raiz Credit Union, and a bit of your background. That'd be great.
Yeah. Hi, Brian. It's great to see you. I know it's been a while since we've been able to have a conversation again about this very exciting and meaningful project. And I can't wait to do a little bit of a deep dive with you as we go through today's podcast. My name is Alex Yu. I am the Vice President of Marketing here at Raiz Federal Credit Union. We used to be El Paso Area Teachers Federal Credit Union, but we just recently, a year ago, went over our rebrand, which was very exciting and extremely successful. Currently, we are a $1 billion credit union here in El Paso, Texas. And we started off serving educators, but over 15 years ago, we expanded to a general population. So we wanted to make sure that we went through our journey of our rebrand based on that. But just a little bit about myself. I have been all my life in the professional life in the financial marketing world. I started off in another credit union doing advertising and promotions. I've worked myself up in through the marketing and advertising world when it comes to credit unions. And I've had over, I would say, it started off in 2008. So it's been quite a few years that I've been in this industry, and I'm very excited about it. So I love what I do.
That's great. And, it'd be really interesting from my perspective, Alex, we work with folks in your role across a number of different industries, and certainly heading up marketing and brand within the credit union space is unique, just as it is in other spaces. But I'd be curious just to kind of get your take on your role at the credit union and kind of how you view the role of brand in the credit union world itself, what makes it unique, and what are some of the unique opportunities and challenges you face in that space?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. Credit unions in general are unique. A lot of people might not have the full awareness of what we are as an industry. They might just think of us as another bank, but there's really a lot of other factors that make us different. The philosophy of credit unions is people helping people. And it really is a way of bringing in not just the financial world, but the cooperative world, which in and itself is a very interesting and, has a lot of history, not just in the United States, but in general. Credit unions started off in Germany centuries ago. And what makes it so great about the credit union industry and branding and marketing in that industry is that connection with our community. Our credit union, and all credit unions, of course, are owned by its members. So we have a big responsibility and a really big, task to make sure that we support our community in everything that we do. So that comes in mind with, our branding to make sure that it's a clear reflection of our community, but that it also helps support and develop our community. Which I think a lot of financial organizations, it's very different. They can become very niche in what they do. They might focus on just businesses, or they just might focus on mortgage. You see a lot of mortgage lenders or investments. But on our side, it's life stages of our community and helping our community grow. So that really makes it very unique. But there's also challenges with that because of credit union industries and how credit unions got started. Credit unions used to be very much about their segment groups. All credit unions probably started off as a segment. Some of them were government employees, some of them were, airline industry, some of them have been healthcare industry, there's firemen credit unions, and just like ours, it was educator credit unions. And then expanding on that as time changed is really unique and really interesting because then you have to build on your legacy. And that is something very powerful when it comes to branding. How can you build on that legacy of something like, for example, with us, we started off in 1936. It's 80 plus years that we've been as an organization. And how does that legacy live on, throughout all these years and take us to the future of what we want to do with our brand? So very unique in how we work as an industry with credit unions compared to other organizations as they think about branding and marketing. And then also just the product that we offer. Other organizations, it might be a product, it might be a bottle of a soft drink, or it might be a commodity. With us, it's experiences, it's people's dreams, it's people's life goals, it's finances, which is very hard for people to talk about or manage at times. How do we do branding and differentiate ourselves in something that some people consider a chore, which is banking? It's not an exciting side, but I think with credit unions, we do a lot of great work on humanizing that piece. So that's why I love it. That's why I've always said I love marketing for credit unions, because it's very unique and different, and it's always very fun and fulfilling.
Yeah, it's I love what you said there, and I think one of the things that has always drawn me, and I found a lot of interest in the credit union space in particular, is I don't think a lot of folks recognize sort of the chunkiness of the strategic challenges that brands face in the credit union space, for the very reason that you raised, in terms of a lot of competing messages and things that the organization needs to address in service to that vision, right, of humanizing that experience and meeting members where they are and so forth. That ultimately we've got to be able to tell both the sort of advantages of the cooperative and what that really means and how that benefits both the member and the community. We need to tell that community impact story. We need to tell the sort of the brass tacks financial benefits and solutions that we provide. And then that last layer that you mentioned in terms of some of the legacy and that connection to sort of specific segments or groups within an industry focus or a geography, et cetera. Can you talk to me a bit about sort of your legacy there at Raiz Federal Credit Union, and really what that means in terms of those audiences that you deal with, the community, et cetera, that teachers' lifeblood that kind of started the organization's journey back in the 1930s?
Yeah, I love the story of our credit union and how we got started. Like, if you really look at it, I mentioned before, we were a credit union that started off with 7 educators in the midst of the Great Depression. It was a time where, you hear the stories, you know what was going on in the country. And then you look at our community, El Paso, Texas, border town, a community that at that time was just a place where people would pass by. The name El Paso literally means the pass. And it was just a place where people from, Mexico were coming into the country, and which we still see today, with everything that's going on in our border. But it's also a great place that, just like how we see it today, a great place of opportunity, a great place of community, a great place of growth. So our story of our organization clearly shows that. It started off with those 7 educators that during the Great Depression, instead of them moving on to other areas, finding other opportunities when they were going through difficult hardships, they decided to band together and gather their $3,000 and find a way of supporting other educators like themselves and they established our credit union. That value, those values that they have are, so aligned to what we still do here at Raiz. And when we decided to go through our rebranding, the conversations that we had with you, Brian, it was key that we kept that spirit of that legacy into what we do. And that's what makes us really different. You see it not just in our brand, but like as we know, brand is people as well. So our people care about our community that way. We talked about credit unions, and something that is very different and a big differentiator from us and other financial organizations is that scrappiness. That we're hungry to help our community, and we find the ways that we can do it through community development, community impact, providing remarkable products and services, being purposeful in our strategies and in our initiatives. It's crucial for us. So as we see the legacy of those 7 educators and when they started in 1936 to what we were able to do with our rebrand, we live that legacy on. And as we talk about, why it's important to keep that legacy alive, it really goes back to, that connection that you mentioned about who we are as we started. And we started off as educators, a credit union for educators. You and I had a lot of conversations as we were developing this brand. How did we want that spirit to live on of an educator in our brand? What does an educator mean? What does an educator do in somebody's life? It's the one that helps you grow. It's the one that helps you, that seed grow out those roots. And that's, where our name comes from. Raiz or Raiz, it's Spanish for roots. And we wanted to make sure that it was something that was super clear with our legacy, because we didn't want to move away from it completely. Like some people, when they do rebrand, or some organizations when they rebrand, they decide to go completely different to what they are. No, we wanted to honor it and grow on it and build on it. And I'm very excited to see what Raiz became, because that was the strategy that we wanted to do. So it was crucial with our rebrand because it's something that we still value and live with every day. And this rebrand has just re-injected that purpose into what we do, which is very, very exciting.
I love that you talked about, because there's a constant thread across rebranding efforts. That's this wrestling with the stewardship mentality, this idea that to remain authentic and to honor the legacy of an organization's heritage and what made it special to begin with, what infused it with a sense of purpose, with the realities of changing market dynamics, need for growth, desire to have a greater impact on the communities they serve. And so I think it'd be really interesting, Alex, to hear from your perspective, because I think a lot of credit unions are faced with the same challenge. They often go through cycles of board meetings where the name comes up because they're attached to a select segment group or a geography, as I mentioned earlier. And I know that's a really tough question to wrestle with. And so I'm curious to hear a bit about your organization's journey towards that decision and what informed that, what really brought you to the point of really kind of getting serious about the potential of the name change. And then further, what were some of the questions and challenges that you foresaw as you all had discourse around the topic of a name change?
Yeah, and like how you mentioned, Brian, when we started talking about our name change, it was because of that original name that we had really locked us into, first off, a segment. Our name was El Paso Area Teachers Federal Credit Union. First off, it was a mouthful, really made it hard for people to say it. But then we also faced that challenge that as we saw the need to help the greater community and not just our seg-based, we were still seeing the challenge of people telling us, well, your name, TFCU, what does the T stand for? And we're like, well, teachers, but you don't need to be a teacher. Well, but the name says teachers. So it really created a lot of a struggle for our team to really be able to connect or even just get the foot in the door to help out in certain businesses or in certain areas of our community. So we really had to have those difficult conversations with our board, our management team, and our members about this change. Because, as other credit unions might tell you, people are very proud of being part of a credit union. We have members that have had generations, and they can even that are members, or they even say, you know what, my number is still one of those 3-digit numbers when we're now at 7 digits, and it makes it really something that they're proud of. And change is hard and it's difficult for people, especially with something that they see day to day and they feel they belong and they connect to. So it was important as we had the conversations about changing our name that we first identified and addressed those concerns, but also focused on what the benefits were of the name change. Really understanding why we wanted to do it, not just because it was something that was nice to do and see what we can get out of it, but really have a purpose behind it, and in a way that would still create that connection of who we are. We talked a lot about it internally when I was presenting this to our leadership team and our board. It's not completely a new identification, a new identity of us. It was more honing in and centering who we are in a new way, and not taking away who we are and dismissing our past, but really looking into the future. And that was key to our rebranding discussions and strategies as we talked about it. So I know that for a lot of credit unions, I've seen the rebrand work that they've done, and a lot of times they'll want to do something, but they still play it safe. They might still keep a lot of the name on there, or not really change it too much. And it might end up being a disservice at the end, because they're going to get to a part of the road where they're going to have to look at another change of their name, or it might not be something that is impactful with the community in general. So really, I highly encourage that as credit unions are going through this process or having these conversations, that they really keep people and the connection with people as a priority, because that's going to make it a lot more easier to understand that you can go and create a brand like Raiz that is very different than our previous name, but still honors and still connects to our legacy and can build on to what we want to be in the future. So I hope that it's something that they keep in mind in the conversations that they have, because it's very, very important. You also don't want to make it something that it becomes that you look into and have to change again in 10 years. We're committed to Raiz for 50 years, 100 years, that we hope that it can continue being that brand.
Yeah, and it's interesting that what you touched upon there. Whenever we go through this process, one thing that folks don't talk a lot about is how powerful a force fear can be. And one thing that always struck me in working with your organization and continues to is the sense of belief that you get from everybody throughout the process. And I'm just kind of curious, because we don't always get from our side to see how that gets developed internally and within your community. And so I'm just kind of curious, even before, as you got to the decision to start the work and invest in it on your side, how that belief was built in terms of the organization, its people, the connection to the board. You mentioned that keeping people sort of at the center of the decision making. Just kind of curious the journey that brought you there, in broad strokes, just what you think the critical ingredients are to getting people on board, so that when that decision is made, you can make those determinations and you can move with a sense of confidence through the process.
Yeah, something that the two things that I would touch on that I think in my experience through this journey is crucial is, first off, you want to have engagement and input from others. It was critical for us, and I've talked to other credit unions since our rebrand and some even before it, just to see what experience they went through. And a lot of the times the decision making was done by the marketing team and the CEO, and they're the ones that had all the input. They're the ones that, workshop the names, and, they worked with an agency, and that was pretty much it. With us, we wanted to make sure that there was a lot of engagement from different areas in our organization, from our membership, from our board. So even in our committee that we would have, as we were developing our new brand and talking about even just developing the new brand and what we wanted to do from it, the first part was engagement and input. Crucial. Having conversations, meaningful conversations about who we are, what are the gaps in our brand? What are some of the things that we want to keep in our brand? What are some of the things that we want to move away from? Those conversations from different areas in the organization and in even our community were critical, because they showed us areas that we might have been blind to if we would have just stayed on the marketing side, or if it would have just been a CEO, or if it would have just been the board of directors, and that is something that a lot of organizations don't realize, especially on the credit union side, because we are something that, we are an industry that values a lot about what the board has to say or what's the CEO going to say. And luckily, we have an exceptional CEO in our organization that believes in collaboration, that believes in, the value that people bring and their experiences bring to the table. And he was, all aboard when I presented that to him and told him we need to have a diverse group, and diversity is key. And by diversity, it's diversity of areas, diversity of ages, diversity of, everything, because race, gender, because sometimes we got to realize brand has to connect with people at the end of the day. And if you don't have people be part of that, then you're really missing the mark. If it's just the hubris of, the marketing team or the CEO that directs the brand, then it's going to get lost because they'll like it, but it never connects with others. So that was critical on my end. The second thing that was critical in order to get this on, ball rolling, and to make sure that we, people felt confident through the process, was having a good partner to help us on that journey. Our experience when we wanted to do a rebrand is that we first, had those internal conversations, and then we started looking out into experts that have done this before. We know this is a heavy task, and a lot of organizations might never go through a rebrand or might do it only once. So it's really hard to really understand all that goes around it. It was crucial for us to find an organization that would help us with that. And, we did a lot of due diligence. We send out, I remember even the process of, sending out the RFPs and interviews and meeting the people that were going to be behind the organizations that we worked with. And, talking with Monaco, a big piece for us was diversity, because that's part of our work. So when we met the team and we, identified, all right, this is the team that we want to work with, it was because of the expertise. It was because of the added value that they had based on our conversations, and also the diversity that they had. So there was direction, there was work, there was experience. That's crucial, because when I presented them to the board that, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is the organization that we're going to work with, it made it almost a no-brainer for them to say, let's move ahead, because we weren't going to take it with, doing it just in-house, or doing it with an organization that doesn't have the credibility or the experience. And that was very, very purposeful and meaningful for them. So I highly recommend that as organizations look at that, include people, and then find those experts that will really help you along the way, because you have no idea how important it was and how much it helped us in our journey to have that relationship with you all in Monaco as we went through it. It made it much easier throughout the whole process.
That's great. And I appreciate you spending this much time with me on kind of the journey to the decision to do this, because I think a lot of the time we focus on the stuff that is really quite exciting when you see a new brand come to life and the change that drives for an organization. But a lot of time, especially in credit unions, but other organizations as well, that that success is really embodiment of all the work it took to get to even start the process. So I appreciate you going there, because I think it's something that is always worth kind of opening a window on for people to really get a sense of the thoughtfulness and how to get that right, because everything else comes together once you do that right, and it can fall apart if you don't really spend that time, get that culture fit right in terms of two organizations that can really challenge each other, but also really push the work together because there's that trust. I'd love to hear from your perspective, Alex, a bit more about once the work got underway, things that were surprising to you that you learned along the way, things that you would kind of, just as you did before, point to other organizations and say, these are critical factors of success as we went through the process of selecting a name, working through the development of an identity, launching a brand. Just would love to get your perspective on kind of the high notes of what are some of the more important considerations and maybe some things that even surprised you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Something that was very much present, and I can tell you personally as spearheading the project, fear. Fear is very much part of it. You're afraid of what's going to happen. Are you going to be that person like that had that major fail in your rebrand that everybody hated, and it just created, especially with the environment now and social media and the way that branding is now, how easy it can be for things to fall apart or for them to just become a really bad failure. And there's that fear that is constant, because there's so much weight behind the decision and the work that you need to do. So something that's important, as you understanding the process, and that I learned that it was surprising, is just how critical it is to have and lay those foundations of the rebrand. Because a lot of people don't realize that you first have to really, really, really dig deep into who you are and what makes you different. And a lot of times, by us being in an organization, we have our idea of what makes us different. But remember, branding is not just what you say you are, it's what people say you are. So seeing it from an outside perspective and hearing from you all, like when we would have our interviews and hearing the feedback of like people saying this about you and this is what makes you different and you should hone in more on that. It was a very fulfilling and surprising process. It really made it lay those foundations to our brand. I will be honest, when I first started off with the process and talking about what we were going to do, we were talking about, a rebrand, new name, new logo, but we didn't think about how it was going to become a persona, how it was going to affect the verbal identity, how we needed to talk, how we needed to present ourselves, how we needed to change our look, how we needed to change our way of doing things, even being purposeful in our community involvement or in our community engagement due to the new brand. All of those things might not be something you're thinking of when you're thinking of a rebranding, but they have to be critical in order for it to be successful. What has been very successful with us is just even the way that our staff embraced it. I heard horror stories before this, from other people that even came to work in our organization, and they were saying, "Oh yeah, we changed our name. We had this really fun event, and we launched it to staff, and our staff at the end was just like, that's it. There was crickets. Nobody was excited. Our launch event was exciting. It was a hype event. Everybody loved it. Everybody left with such great energy, but because there was involvement from our team throughout the process, and people felt the brand reflect them, and that was critical. So I think something that as I discovered and that I was very surprised on in the process was the laying of the foundations are key to the rebrand, and people should not skip those at all. And sometimes it can be very easy to skip that. So it's very important to do that research and then create that, what Monaco works on with the SMI, the single-minded idea. The single-minded idea is what's pushing our initiatives and our strategies and our everyday work constantly. And if we wouldn't have had that experience, then we really wouldn't have developed that. And that was all done before we even started talking about name options, before we even started looking at logos or colors. It was establishing what our single-minded idea was going to be, what our persona was going to be, and building from that. And I was very surprised at that process because I didn't know that that's how we were going to go. And I remember, throughout our conversations of the rebrand, you all and Monaco telling us this is how we're going to do it. At first I was like, okay, let me try to connect the dots, but then you see it happen and how everything is connected and everything is embedded throughout the brand. It just makes it much more powerful. It makes it meaningful. It makes it purposeful. It makes it remarkable, which are the things that I really value in our brand. And if we wouldn't have gone through that process, and again, because of having a great partner, we wouldn't have known and it wouldn't have been as successful. And I can tell you that. There's people that I see in other credit unions. We've got over 10 awards now in the industry. We've gone to conferences and people know who we are, and we're in El Paso, Texas, and they immediately say, I want to know how you guys did it. And as soon as I talk to them about the process, it's exciting, but it's things that they don't even know. They sometimes just feel like, oh, well, it's very easy. You just change the name, submit it to the NCUA, get a graphic designer to do a new logo, and that's it. They don't realize the legal side. They don't realize the digital reputation piece. They don't realize social media reputation. They don't realize communication, costs. All of those things are crucial, and they can make your whole project fall apart and not have a big impact. But they don't realize, most importantly, the work that goes before the visual design and the visual identity changes. And that is where the big investment has to happen. The SMIs, the brand personas, the verbal identity, all of those things are critical before you even get to those other steps. So I hope that people, as they listen to this and realize, I want to do a rebrand, that they keep that in mind, because that's the foundation of the building. The logo and the name is just a sign outside, but this is the foundation, this is the architecture, and this is how the building's going to work and look great. And if we don't put emphasis on that, then your brand is really not going to be strong.
I love the focus there in terms of those foundational elements and how critical they are to imbuing the brand in every aspect of the organization. I know when we worked together, I think it was one of the surprising moments was how verbal identity even started to make us think differently about job and department titles and things like that. And I think one thing that the attention to that investment up front is really important. I think one of the things that we always know and are cognizant of, while we love building and launching brands, that the real work starts, and you alluded to this, on day 2, right? After the balloons are down, and we've got to keep this thing going. We've got to keep the momentum going, and we've got to ensure that this has legs and can continue to inform all that we do. Can you talk to me, Alex, a bit about how the brand, since your launch, has been embedded in the organization? Any highlights from the way it's created change within the organization, or things that you've had to work on to really make sure that the brand really does live on and thrive post-launch?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought this up, because I think it's also critical that people realize that when you rebrand, it doesn't just mean putting a new logo or putting a new name. But if you're changing your brand and you have a new persona, or you have a single-minded idea, or you talk about all these things, that sometimes can just be the external brand. And we made it very important that it was going to also, we needed to do the internal face of our rebrand. And that meant with our staff. We worked also with the team at Monaco to develop redefine our values. Our values before, when we were TFCU, were, very traditional: leadership, communication, teamwork, trust, things that you find in every organization's, value structure. And for us, we said, no, we now have to tie them into this brand. How can we make it different? And we came up through an exercise of that brought it onto, these new three values that we have: empower, uplift, and impact. Those values are now living in a lot, well, in everything that we do as an organization, from changing our recognition program, employee recognition program, which has helped with retention efforts, which has helped with employee engagement, which has helped with our team feeling satisfied working with us. And they're tied to our values and they're tied to our brand, and we even have recognition that has to do with empowering and uplifting and impact. It's also created a new culture when it comes to volunteer work, work into the community from our staff. It's also helped our team be purposeful in the community development side that we focus on, because it's tied to our values. It's also helped us, even just today, we were having a workshop about our job descriptions, and we were going to change all of the job descriptions in the organization, and we're going to go through that process. And throughout the process, we talk about our brand and who we are and what our persona, how it embeds into the job descriptions, which are then what we utilize to hire, people that we want to reflect our brand. So that it was critical. That's the day two work that we're doing right now, and we're even working on changing titles, and changing department names to make them connected to this brand that we now have, because that's how they're going to live it. If we felt that we didn't want to just put a new sign up and then say like, well, this is who we are now. No, we wanted to make it part of our DNA, and that means, how we talk, how we describe things, how we even greet each other on emails. People utilize that new brand persona in that, and we've seen it reflect in how our team works, in how our team sees themselves, in the value that they have in the organization. They no longer are just an employee of a credit union. Now they're an empowering mentor. They're somebody and that's our brand persona, the empowering mentor. And we talk about what does that mean and how we develop you to become that. So that day two, it is really what we're living in right now, but it's very exciting because you're seeing it come to life. You're seeing it become real, and you see it in the experience that people have with our brand. And all of those things wouldn't have happened without the rebrand. We even do things like our facilities. We, as we were redoing them and doing different signage and of course changing colors, we also realized like, hey, the experience has to tie into our brand. So how do we do that? We even created a signature scent for our organization so that when people walk in to our branch, they smell it and it identifies to the feeling that we want our brand to have, which is, empowering, fresh, modern, tech friendly. And we went through a process of smelling all these things that had, feelings that tied to it. So now it's part of the experience, and it's something that our members live. And as we, are growing and changing and making new improvements to our systems, they see it throughout that whole process. So really cool things. Even our something that I don't think I've shared with you, Brian, but we just recently launched our new online banking, and part of it also has, a chatbot functionality to help our members when we are out of office so that they can get responses to things that they need. The name of our chatbot is Archie, and it's because of the arch. And the arch is a big part of our brand, and it's embedded in our logo, and it's part of our community because it talks about our architecture here in El Paso. It has a lot of arches, And Archie is now part of our chatbot, and we're even utilizing, the concept of it's better under the arch, and the whole concept behind that. So there's still a lot of things that we're doing to embed our brand into the things that we do. But if we wouldn't have had that foundation of our SMI, of our brand persona to build on, then it would have just been very much, well, we changed our logo, we changed our colors, and that was it. No, now it lives on in other things, and our team is reflecting it in their areas as well, not just on marketing. So super exciting.
Yeah, and thank you, Alex, for bringing up the scent, because as you know, we embrace that the sort of four dimensions of brand experience: the emotional, the intellectual, the behavioral, and then lastly that sensorial. And oftentimes when we list out those sensorial attributes, there's always one listed there called olfactory, and everyone kind of looks at me and says, does anyone actually really think about their smells? And I always get to use you all as an example of an organization that really embraced that idea, the totality of the brand experience from a human perspective, and how something like scent wasn't just about creating a nice scent. You all created a scent that really connects to the ethos that the brand is all about. And I absolutely love that example, as well as the chatbot. It's a fantastic demonstration of how things like visual identity can be cues for other experiences. So as you know, that visual identity was inspired by the architecture of the community, and to see that live on through a digital expression and a digital personality is really phenomenal. Absolutely love that example. I'm curious, Alex, as we kind of move our way towards the close of this, just kind of your sense, metrics of success, things that you point to, whether they're sort of soft or hard metrics that you and the team there pay attention to coming out of the rebrand, both in terms of kind of year one and year two as you're out of this, but as you kind of look forward, the things that you're paying attention to ensure that the brand continues to live on and infuse all those ideas that you mentioned previously.
Yeah, as marketers, we probably will look at things like, of course, ROI and those hard numbers that some CEOs and the board are gonna, and your CFOs are gonna be asking, like, okay, this is gonna be expensive. What's the ROI on it? And a lot of times we go by metrics like brand awareness, which is very hard to also measure, because unless you do a very robust or meaningful brand awareness survey, it's going to be hard to really get those metrics on there. And I think a lot of times we can get pigeonholed into making a decision on a rebrand based on like, well, what are going to be the results on that? I want people to also think different when it comes to results. Like for us to be a successful rebrand, we talked a lot about how was our staff going to embrace it. That was a first one. We wanted to make sure that our staff felt excited about it, that our staff loved it. And I can tell you, I mean, we have periodically we do open up a store with apparel, and everybody's buying all the new things. They want to have the logo there. You have no idea how many requests I get about like, when are we going to get more stuff with our logo on it? They're super proud of it. They love it. We have made them, Raiz fanatics, and it's great to see, because that means that it's connecting with the people that make the organization. And then that can become very, infectious to others. And we see other people want to work in our organization because of that culture, because of that brand and what they see of it and how it lives. So to me, that was a big measurement of success, making sure that our staff embraced it, loved it, lived it, were big fans of it, and we're seeing that happen. The second thing, of course, we want to make sure that in our community, it has that visibility and the connection. So we are seeing that as well. Before, the way that we would be involved in our community, of course, with sponsorships and community work, but now we're seeing, and we had to be the ones actively looking out. Now we're seeing the opposite effect. We're seeing a lot of people reach out to us and say, we need to have them involved. We want to have them. We want to be part of that. They come to us first, and we used to be, not to be mean, but like an afterthought in that way. of how they would look at our involvement on sponsorships or community involvement or community development projects. But now we're part of it. Like they want us there. They crave for us to be there, and we're constantly talking and having conversations with that. Other thing as well, we saw engagement on the community through our social media, talking about it, and social media followers, more people that were visiting our website. We also saw that. Great thing that we saw as well, that I saw successful was from my peers seeing responses on our rebrand. And, we were very excited, just recently with Monaco received, it's now 10 awards that we've received on our rebrand, national, regional, industry, and then, what we're seeing now, even multinational sometimes. Very, very exciting to see when your peers recognize that rebrand and they feel that connection and it stands out, because it's very hard to get people's attention. And when we're able to see that, that's critical for us. And then the last thing is that the brand lives in our people. I said, that our brand embraces it, but then it's also very important for our brand to live it, to our people to live it. Something that I'm very proud of right now, we have NCUA examiners that are here at Raiz, and they're doing our periodic that they do with all credit unions. They mentioned this week that they went to our branches, they talked to our staff because they knew that we did a rebrand, of course, and they were so impressed and seeing how our staff knew the name, knew the meaning behind it, talked about the persona, talked about what it means, and they were excited about it. They honestly told us, and these are examiners, so they don't need to, impress us or anything, but they've told us that they haven't seen that in other places that go through a rebrand. They see people that are a little bit still unsure, they might not know, or they just not excited. And they're said here, everybody that we talked to, that we were just, interviewing, knew it. And we didn't even know that they were going to ask questions like that, but just because it's so alive in our brand, in our organization, it was reflected in their responses and in their energy. To me, that already shows that this is a great success, because we're seeing people excited about it. They live it, they love it, they want to work here, they know about it, they care about it, they want to continue seeing it grow, and that to me would be a great way of looking at success.
It's great. And I love to hear it in terms of just all of the engagement and everyone taking ownership of it as well. I think as we close, I think the two things that I would really love to hear, Alex, because you touched on it at the outset of our conversation in terms of, we were talking a bit about fear, right? And kind of navigating this journey, and you thinking kind of what are the downsides of this professionally, personally, et cetera. I'd love to hear from you just, a soundbite of what for you has this experience been like within your organization, not just the work itself, but just in the role that you play, and just personally, what's been most rewarding about it? And then maybe we close with kind of any last thoughts for other folks that are in your position, things that if you were to leave them with just a couple of bullets of things to think about, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, no, I would be lying if I didn't say that to me and my professional accomplishments, this is the apex, in the work that I've done so far in my career. It's incredible. It's very fulfilling. But what I loved about it is that it wasn't just done by me, but with a team, that we worked together, that my team here internally, teams from other departments, the team from Monaco, our ad agency that we have here locally, that it was a collaborative effort, and being able to lead a project like that is extremely fulfilling, especially seeing it come to light, the launch, and then now seeing it every day. I get so proud when I hear people say that, we're everywhere, or they get excited about it, or, we get another pickup on PR, or people are talking about us. it's so exciting because I know that it wasn't just me. It came from a group of people. And that, when I tell one of our big lines that we talk about with the rebrand is let's dream big. That's something that we also talked about when we developed the brand, and that line, let's dream big, we utilize it in things. We even have shirts here that every team member has that say let's dream big. And I tell our CEO this, when great people come together, we do great things and we do big things here at Raiz. And I just love seeing it happen every day. And it couldn't have happened without this project. It couldn't have happened without the work that we all put in. But it was just very fulfilling to see it happen. And it's something that it's, like I say, the apex of my professional career, an organization that has been over 86 years established to be able to change that identity in a positive way and in a way that has been very much successful in my mind is just very, very fulfilling. And hopefully my team feels the same. They always say, they're part of this legacy now, and I'm very excited to make them feel that way as well. That they see that pride and they get excited about that, the rebrand and the project that we did.
What a powerful story to be able to tell, and a wonderful feeling to know that your peers and folks within the organization have that sense of being a part of the legacy, especially considering the import that you all and others, particularly in the credit union space, put on stewardship of legacy. And to hear people start to say they're a part of that legacy now and into the future, that's a fantastic endorsement of the team there and the work that you all put in. So, well, Alex, I really appreciate anything else that you want to leave us with as you think about other peers and folks listening to this that you want them to know as they kind of think about this process. Anything you want to leave us with?
Just to reinforce what I've said earlier in our conversation, if you're going to do a rebrand, make sure you go all in, and understanding what that means. That means involving people in the early onset, finding a good partner to help you in those things that you might not know, and that they can guide you because they're looking out for your best interests, and their your success is their success as well, and that's very important. Also, understanding that this is going to be a process, and it can't just be something that like, okay, we did it, we checked the box. No, from then on, you have to make it live. You have to water that seed. You have to keep on having it grow and maintain it and have it live. And that's crucial, because if you're not willing to do all of that, then I can tell you now, it's not going to be a successful process. It's going to be a hard process. It's going to be a very challenging process. So just coming in with that mentality is very important, because then you can get the people behind you on it and you can work together to make sure that you're successful. So go all in, don't do it halfway, and make sure that you involve people.
Right. Well, thank you. This has been fantastic, and really appreciate you spending the time to share your story with us. It's a wonderful one and a lot of great lessons for others.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciated the time.
That's all for today's episode. We hope these insights from top brand leaders help you as you face your own branding roadblocks. Remember that you're not alone in the challenges you face, and there are always impactful, creative, and human ways to solve brand problems. If you would like to further connect with fellow elite brand leaders and join our community, send an email to gcohen@monogle.com. Thank you for joining us. See you on the next one.